Hey, Jack. It's Catherine. We have an insurrection at the Capitol. It appears to have been partially planned and motivated on our platform.
Oh, hi, Catherine. Well, I find that insurrection is a word that's used to invoke an emotional response. Can you have that nice lady on the third floor who got me the certificate, the gift certificate for the parsley colonic to handle this? Namaste, Catherine.
Hi, Jack. It's Ellen from Square. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were on vacation.
It's no problem. What's going on? Okay? Assemble the team. Fire up the 650. We're blowing this taco stand. The topic of today's episode, Twitter. On January 6, when the Duck Dynasty terrorists besieged the U.S. Capitol, the interests of society and shareholders became one. For years, we've advocated a change in Twitter's business model for the good of the Commonwealth and benefit to shareholders, of which, full disclosure, I'm one. Since Twitter's IPO in 2013, the firm has underperformed the market and is up only, get this, 5%, basically flat since its IPO. That's right, Twitter has vastly underperformed everyone from Snap and Facebook to the New York Times. The election of the former president smeared Vaseline over the lens of chronic underperformance. This wallpapered over a total lack of innovation. The traffic and engagement Trump brought to the platform, including 26,000 tweets and 1,000 tags per minute, helped reverse the 63% downward slide in Twitter's stock price since its public offering. But the reality remains a stagnant share price and a steady decrease in revenue per user since 2018, all tied to a broken business model. A study found that just 20 accounts, including Trump's, were responsible for 1/5 of misinformation about voting in 2020. Within a few short days of the former president's account suspension, lies about election fraud fell 73%, despite claims that cleaning up false information was prohibitively difficult. It would be impossible, if impossible means being an 8th grader in a laptop. But make no mistake, misinformation still runs rife on Dorsey's watch. The Knight Foundation found that 83% of the core disinformation accounts it identified in 2016 were still active on January 19th of this year. I believe the government should regulate the misinformation machine that has become Twitter. But even if it were to escape government scrutiny, Twitter is also doomed by its insufficient scale. Twitter's reach is large relative to traditional media, but dwarfed by that of Google and Facebook. So what should Twitter do? 2 things. 1, own the space it occupies, and 2, change its business model. For Twitter to own the space it occupies in the information age, it needs to provide creators with tools to capitalize on their content, something an annual development budget of roughly $800 million has thus far failed to accomplish. As a result, other platforms have moved in, including Substack, a platform writers use to create subscription newsletters, and Clubhouse, an audio social network that recently cleared unicorn status. And then there's Douyin, TikTok's sister company in China that just launched Douyin Pay, a payments feature for its creators. A payment system would have been an obvious innovation for Twitter, as its CEO happens to also be the CEO of payments company Square. However, roughly 90% of Dorsey's wealth resides at Square, highlighting not only a distraction, but a clear conflict of interest. Isn't he likely to aim all his blue flame thinking and ideas around payments at Square? Or worse, suppress payments innovation to avoid having to manage the conflict? To be fair, this week, Twitter showed signs of life when it acquired newsletter company Review, a Substack competitor. However, Twitter has a terrible track record integrating acquisitions. In 2012, they bought Vine, only to shut it down in 2016. Vine, by the way, was TikTok before there was a TikTok. And remember Periscope? Periscope was the live streaming platform Twitter acquired in 2015 that could have been Twitch, but instead had an early death and joined Vine in the Twitter graveyard. In addition to creating or acquiring the features its creators need, Twitter should also evolve from a purely ad-supported model to a subscription model. To be clear, Twitter has threatened or even said they're pursuing a subscription platform, pushing the stock up 12% last July. However, when asked about the status of subscription pilots in their most recent earnings calls, they simply responded that they should expect, or shareholders should expect, a series of new initiatives. In other words, we haven't made any progress. So let's look at the math of a subscription model. As of Q3 2020, Twitter's annualized advertising revenue was $3.2 billion. To entirely replace that revenue on subscription fees alone, Twitter would need just under 15% of its 187 million daily active users to pay an average monthly subscription fee of $10. And don't bother to leave me a comment about it. Of course, low follower accounts and nonprofits should have free status that would maintain the viscosity and the circulatory system, and we could hold on to most of that ad revenue. But trust me on this, Kim Kardashian and the brands who sponsor her would pay handsomely to reach her 69 million followers. There is dramatic surplus value that management and shareholders are not capturing here. But Twitter has all of the calories of algorithmic amplification, with none of the great taste of the scale and profits of Google and Facebook. Twitter shareholders have little to lose and much to gain by pursuing the subscription model. And in contrast to Facebook and Google, Twitter shareholders actually have a say in the company's strategy. The Zuck and Larry and Sergey issue dual-class shareholder stock, meaning regardless of how irrational their decisions are, investors are in the backseat and can never get their hands on the wheel. In other words, their shareholders can't fire them. In contrast, Twitter shareholders actually have authority and can make this change, and it is overdue. The transition to subscription should not be done under Dorsey's watch. He has to go. Mr. Dorsey's insistence on managing or not Twitter from far-flung retreats and months-long adventures should make the case for his removal as CEO self-evident. I can't believe I even have to say this shit. We should remove a part-time CEO? Yeah, no shit. According to the New York Times, Dorsey oversaw Twitter's response to the Capitol insurrection from a private island in French Polynesia frequented by celebrities escaping the paparazzi. Well, isn't that nice? I wonder if he split time between two archipelagos. It is clear that Dorsey isn't interested in running Twitter. Case in point, Twitter's earnings calls are no place for a silent retreat. In December 2019, I wrote a public letter to Twitter's board. I argued that the company had put the pursuit of profits over the sanctity of U.S. elections. In addition, I wrote that, open quote, algorithms that promote conspiracies and junk science have resulted in a firm that not only underperforms, but is dangerous. Twitter's continued failure to address these issues, I concluded, threatens the foundations of our social order. This was in late 2019. I did not hear back. However, a week later, activist hedge fund Elliott Management signed my letter with a $1 billion pen and secured 3 seats on Twitter's board as they being Twitter, realized their defense was indefensible. Prediction? Expect my next letter to be signed with a sword. Jack Dorsey will be ousted as CEO of Twitter by the end of the year, and legacy directors will decide to step down. As shareholders realize, a Capitol officer being bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher is bad for shareholder value. A quick message to the employees of Twitter. Would you rather be good for society, or would you rather make a shit ton of money? If the answer is yes, then lose the nose ring. We'll see you next week.